the importance of sleep is something we vastly underestimate. A lot of people just let themselves going around each day when they're really 1 or 2 or 3 hours sleep deprived, and they're just operating psychologically at this lower level of existence without even realizing it. We always tend to stay up a bit later because there's something enjoyable to do, more enjoyable than just going to sleep. And it's something that we don't realize is going to have serious consequences until the next morning when we have to get up because of some kind of commitment. And it's just a very ugly situation because you really don't want to get up, but you have to force yourself to get up anyway because you have something to do, and that pain could have been avoided if you had just went to bed at the right time. And I think that in general, going to bed later is worse for you than getting up earlier. So it's like the body kind of punishes you for being hedonic and pleasure driven. So sorry, rather than like taking this hard working stand for getting up early, because I felt way worse when I slept like an hour later because I was watching this YouTube video. Let's say I'd usually go to bed at 10 o'clock. I went at 11 o'clock this one particular night, and I was utterly destroyed the next day. But then the first day I started waking up at 5 a.m., which was 2 hours earlier than normal. I was kind of tired, but it only really came on later on in the day, and even then it wasn't nearly as bad as when I hadn't went to sleep until 11 p.m. Of course, these were two different times completely, but you know what I mean. So yeah, clearly staying up later is way worse than getting up earlier. So that's one thing you need to know about sleep. Another thing you need to know is you need to uh, make sure that you're waking up in the middle of the night as little as possible, because that interrupts your sleeping, so you're more likely to just stay awake longer. You don't realize how many times you wake up during the night. You probably wake up, if you can notice, you wake up 5 or 6 times. Like you're conscious of that. Then you're not conscious of the 30 times you actually wake up during the night. So you really wake up about 6 times more than you realize. It might just be for a few seconds, and then you just completely forget about it. You never remember it in the morning. And it's not even that bad. Those are just natural. But if you're consistently waking up in the middle of the night, consciously, even once or more, then that's probably a bad thing because your sleep is getting interrupted. And when you have interrupted sleep, it's not nearly as good as being able to just sleep the whole night straight through without any interruptions. And I myself have this problem for the last few months. I've just had an issue where I've been waking up at least once every single night, and it's just impossible for me to not wake up. I don't know why. It's it used to be like 2 or 3 times or 4 or 5 times, but I cut it down because I've just improved my lifestyle habits. But in general, I've spoken to people as well, and most people I think don't wake up during the night. But if you have an unhealthy lifestyle, then it's possible you can fix the fact that you're waking up in the middle of the night. Like if you're eating Cheetos and playing games until about 4 a.m., then it's likely that you're gonna have little sleep anyway. But you're probably gonna wake up in the morning and you're not gonna have enough sleep. Like that's just not something you should do. And people don't intend to do this, but again, their drives take over and they listen to the limbic area of their brain, the area that just wants instant gratification, and that's not a good thing. You need to be able to focus on getting enough sleep, because having enough sleep really improves your productivity. So when you have enough sleep, you're able to actually focus properly. That's why we shouldn't um, sacrifice sleep for studying or something, because if you're trying to study but then you're sacrificing sleep for it, your study is going to be of lower quality anyway. So you might as well just give about 8 hours a night. I don't think, of course, like I'm a teenage man, 19 years old, and I I only give about 8 hours really of sleep per night, or I dedicate only 8 hours of sleep, because if I dedicate any more 9 or 10 hours, I just don't sleep for half of those, and I just wake up a ton of times. If I go to sleep too early, let's say I try to go to sleep at 8 o'clock, I would just not be able to go to sleep for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it wouldn't work for me at all. That's why I go to sleep at about, I get like I start to go to sleep at 9 o'clock, and I wake up at probably 5, maybe a bit later, because I just naturally tend to wake up a little bit later than 5, but not much later. So yeah, don't dedicate too many hours to sleep. I have heard some YouTubers saying that you should dedicate like 10 or 11 hours. Doesn't work for me at all. Might work for you. You kind of got to figure it out yourself. Another thing that you could be aware of with sleep is being able to receive the sunlight properly. So first thing in the morning, what you should do is go outside and get some sunlight, because it's good for the dopamine release, and it's sorry, my phone always shakes when I'm holding it by the hand. So yeah, go outside first thing in the morning, and what you're gonna do is just gonna get some sunlight, and that'll optimize your dopamine. And then when the sun is going down, then again in the evening, you're going to want to have a look at it while it's going outside, even if it's not completely down. I'm in May. It's basically the middle of summer, and the sun is just hot, still up in the sky when I'm going to sleep. So I just have a look at it as it's settling upon the clouds, and that seems to put me to sleep without too much difficulty. As opposed to when I wasn't actually looking at the sun, because when I wasn't looking at the sun, I was waking up more than once. I'd be consistently waking up 2 or 3 times a night. That was just the way it had evolved for me. Another thing is, don't look directly at the sun. Just don't be an idiot. Don't blind yourself. Kind of look at it in the corner of your eye, but you already know this, likely. And I mentioned earlier on in the video about you operating at a lower level of existence when you don't get enough sleep, and this is for a while, because it just becomes this sort of chronic issue because you start to forget just how unfocused you are after a while of not sleeping much, and so you just tend towards this ground level. And depending on how much energy you exert a day, it's probably fine for you. If you don't do anything physically demanding, then maybe 6 or 7 hours is fine. But if you do things physically demanding, then the moment you get back up to the 8-hour peak that you once were, it's going to be great. It's just going to be an amazing feeling. Another thing is, you can sleep for a few nights in a bit of a deficit, but you're going to need a surplus at the end of it. And in order to get that surplus, you're just going to need to sleep for 9 or 10 hours, and you're probably going to be able to do that. I think the longest I slept for was 11 or 12 hours in the last year. I had a friend who slept 13 hours. I don't know, just not able to sleep that long straight. Always wake up 5 or 6 hours in. But yeah, just make sure to dedicate enough time to sleep. And this cat is trying to get out, and she's succeeding actually. So I better pay attention to that. Anyway, yeah, try to get enough sleep. It's more important than you might think.